Associated Press White House reporter Jill Colvin joins us now from the White House. So, Jill, let's go through some of what Dean just said there. These familiar campaign themes, the president touching on immigration, but also talking about some legislative promises there, tax cuts, infrastructure. What's the reality, first of all, when you look at where the president sits now with the lower approval rating, with the cloud of the Russia investigation, as the president has put it, hanging over his presidency, and the difficulty that we've seen so far on health care? What kind of political capital does this president have right now?
Yeah, I mean, at this point right now, we are on step one of passing healthcare legislation. Haven't even gotten to begin the fight over tax reform, the fight over infrastructure. And what's so interesting in watching these realities is you really see the president presenting the reality that he would like to have for himself. No mention of the Russia investigation. The president was standing up there claiming that no other president has ever accomplished as much as he has in his first 6 months. Really kind of celebrating the accomplishments that he's had, and you kind of contrast that with what has actually been accomplished in Washington and what he's facing here, which is a situation where, he really doesn't have very much political capital to spend. Republicans have proven reluctant to go along and to put themselves on the line to go along with what he's hoping for.
And yet, Jill, let's talk about the venue here, because there's a specific reason, right, why the White House chose Youngstown, Ohio, right? The senator there, the Republican Senator Rob Portman, had expressed some trepidation about this latest version of the Senate health care bill. Tell us more about that, and where do things stand now?
I mean, well, just to go back to the location, what you also have to keep in mind here is that the president has done a number of these rallies. He's really picking up his travel this week. And we've seen a pattern where the president tends to return to places that delivered him big election wins. He wants to be able to draw these big crowds. His staff, the folks who are still working on his reelection committee, really feel like these are opportunities to put the president in his element, to kind of, help his spirits. And they want to go to places where he's popular, where he can draw that kind of support. But you contrast that with what we're seeing back home. Finally, he was able to notch a win when it came to healthcare, but there's still a long road ahead in actually passing, getting to see this legislation passed.
Well, so no mention of Jeff Sessions at that rally, but on Tuesday, President Trump continued to rail against his attorney general. And in fact, Sessions has so far refused to step down. You wrote a piece, Jill, reporting about the president's conversations with his advisors about possibly firing Sessions. What would happen if the president did fire him?
Yeah, I mean, what we're hearing right now is that obviously the president is very angry. He delivered, he was at a press conference today where he again publicly chastised Sessions, which is really just an unprecedented thing for a president to do. You also have to keep in mind that this is a president who very often, he calls up friends, he talks to advisors, and he throws out names. He says, how's my press secretary doing? How's my communications director doing? What do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? It's the way that he operates. It's the way that he tries to take the temperature of people around him and find out how they think. So just because we're hearing the president, venting publicly, just because he is discussing potential replacements, doesn't necessarily mean that that is imminent. We have heard endless talk in this administration of staffing shakeups that don't necessarily come to fruition.
Well, the Washington Post, Jill, is now reporting that Sessions will announce investigations into leaks of sensitive intelligence information. What do you make of that?
Well, this is really interesting. The president has been furious at Sessions, number one, because he chose to recuse himself from all matters related to the Russia investigation. But also, as the president said today during the press conference, he's angry that Sessions has not taken kind of a harsher tone and done more to cut down on leaks, which the president has been angry about since day one. And so what you're seeing here, I think, is, Jeff Sessions kind of getting the message from the president and maybe trying to move in a direction, trying to do things publicly, announce things publicly that will make the president happy and perhaps, cool the president's temper a little bit.
Well, meantime, the Senate Judiciary Committee issued and then rescinded a subpoena for Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and Ranking Member Dianne Feinstein said in a statement that Manafort is now producing documents. What's going on there?
You know what, we now seen, we've had Jared Kushner also coming in to speak to congressional investigators, some back and forth about, with Manafort clearly about how that testimony or that kind of presentation is going to come about. But this is just another example. Look, you've got multiple congressional committees along with the special counsel who are digging into all of these people surrounding the president, from his former campaign chairman to his son-in-law, to a long list of people. And just, the contrast here of the news on Capitol Hill with these people coming in and delivering their statements versus the kind of rosy picture of his presidency that Trump is trying to kind of paint as he reemerges on the campaign trail is really quite striking. It
is striking indeed, and this story, no doubt, to be continued. Jill Colvin from the Associated Press. Jill, thank you.
Thank you.